can mean only one thing. It is time for Belmont Stakes Week. Yes, Belmont has opened last week, and we're going to talk about the Belmont Stakes, the state of horse racing, and our good friend Pete the Prophet joins us. Doug Miles and Don Henderson with you, and Pete joined us via telephone once again from a different state. He's up in Connecticut tonight, but happy to have him because he's a hard man to get a hold of. But Pete, glad to have you back with us.
I'm ready to roll. I know it was supposed to go last week, but I know Don, very important man. He had things to do last week, and he didn't have time.
Let me tell you one thing. I hear that I don't hear. I know. He's keeping that new money in circulation. Just bought a new house up there in Connecticut. This virus is not slowing down the economy as far as Pete is concerned. The racetracks are open. New house in Connecticut. He's ready to go. The Belmont's got all that money to give him Saturday.
I got everything. I got every winner in a star-studded card with a star-studded horses in the Belmont Stakes. What a day with a fantastic.
Just tell me first of all, tell me the difference between a mile and an eighth and a mile and a half. Now you had all your horses picked and charted for a mile and a half. And then they came in and said, "Well, this is really not going to be the Belmont because it's going to be not at the right time." And it's not going to be the right distance, but it is going to be in the same venue. So what do you got for us?
Let me tell you, I don't have this race coming up on Saturday is basically a non-winners of three. It's an allowance race. There's one horse in the race.
Yep.
Is the law that'll probably
the law, yeah, right.
Probably will run over the field. There really is not much in the race. I mean, they really had to do a mile and an eighth because if they ran a mile and a half, there would literally be no one running in that race. So they had to do this. The big horses, I mean, think about this race. I think out of the top 18 points getters, I think only 2 will even be in this race, which is unbelievable when all 18 would go in the Derby. And then I think out of the top 8, I think 5 are out. Nadal, the undefeated horse, he was retired. Baffert had another one. I think one was even put down. So this race is just an allowance race, really, coming up on Belmont Stakes Day. There's really nothing to it. It's just it's very sad. I mean, I guess Belmont, I'd love to blast Naira, but I don't think they really had a choice in the matter. Maybe they could have done a mile and a quarter, but if a mile and a quarter at Belmont, ever since they got rid of that long backstretch with after the Ruffian Foolish Pleasure match race many, many moons ago. They start halfway on the turn, so it's a really weird starting gate. They angle it. They probably wouldn't have done that. Mile and an eighth makes the most sense, but I this whole thing is so weird. The Derby in September, which for them was a perfect call because you win the Derby and then you wait 2 months and run in the Breeders' Cup. The Preakness, I don't know who's running in the Preakness. That'll be another, basically an allowance race because anybody's just going to wait for the Breeders' Cup. No one's going to run probably a race September, 1 October, and then come right back in November.
I thought, a sentimentalist like yourself, I thought you'd be in favor of Jack Dalton's horse because it's been 20 years since Empire ran right by his horse to win the Triple Crown. Now it's 20 years later, and I expected you to be on the bandwagon because you were probably there 20 years ago.
I was there 20 years ago. I definitely was there, but I don't have a sentimental bone in my body. So that's especially when it comes to horse racing. Please, you have to have a very short memory. So I've moved on. I don't even know. I'm trying to figure out what they're going to do for 3 hours on the telecast. I don't really know. The stories they're going to tell or what's going to happen. It's very interesting. And on another note, and I don't want to listen. Naira has had some of the better track announcers in the history of racing, followed up by these last 2 gentlemen, and now, John Embrial. I don't.
Yeah,
know
I want to get into that, Pete,
because
you and I emailed a little bit about when I didn't hear about this till about a week ago. Apparently, this happened back in January. They let Larry Colmus, who had been doing it for about 5 years in New York. Of course, he's done the Triple Crown on NBC for several years, and they just let his contract expire and told him to get out. What happened?
They didn't. They couldn't come to a monetary agreement, and Larry also wanted to as him and Durkin both were doing, where they were taking off the winters and, coming back really for the main meet where, Naira saved money because they weren't paying him for that, for those dates that nobody really cared about. So with him gone, it's a huge vacuum. I mean, listen, no matter what you want to say about Chick Anderson and Marshall Cassidy, Chick, was famous sometimes for the wrong reasons, but, Chick had that voice.
He would
Marshall
call a horse
Cassidy.
that wasn't in a race occasionally, right? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. Yeah. I could be sentimental about that. I can tell you that. But it's
we've all done that.
No, you're 100% right. I don't. To me, over whatever money that it could have been. I mean, how much could it have been?
Yeah. How much could it have been? Right.
20
it's
grand,
like
40
millions
grand.
of dollars. It's probably in the 10 or 15, 20,000. I mean, it's not that much difference.
That's all it could be. I mean, how much could a track announcer make? And he has the voice now. He took over. Listen, I was never. I very much liked Larry Coleman as a track announcer, but when he came to the big races, when he took over for Durkin, before he got to took over the Breeders' Cup, I always thought he tried too hard. But man, when I listened to him day to day at Belmont, man, that guy was good, professional. Great voice, good calls. Really, really a shame that he's not going to be there calling these races. And John has been around since I was a 2-year-old.
You and I were going there in college, and he was there then as the backup. Yeah, backup then.
Absolutely, he was there for a long time. I think John he actually took a gig for a while, like in Thistledown or something like that, or someone else, and then he came back. But he's always been around there, and he's just a race caller, but nothing exceptional, and that's going to even make that even stranger. And I don't even know. I assume they're going to use his call. I don't know, right? I mean, who
I guess he does the
calling?
NBC call though, right, for TV? I would guess. I hadn't heard anything different.
I guess so. I mean, it used to be that the NBC would have their own caller, whoever that would be, and they would take over. Like if Colmus was doing the Derby, it would take over for the track announcer because that's who you'd hear because NBC hired him. In this case, I guess it's going to be John Imbrial calling the race, but it's not going to be too much fun involved in this race.
The other thing that surprised me a little bit when they did some of the last week. Of course, everything that they do in the post right now is a rehash of what happened in the last 40 years. But when they did the top and that, of course, they went to the Giant game, and Bobby Thompson's home run is the number one call of all time in New York.
Yeah. But
I was a little surprised that they didn't get a little more activity on the racing front with some of the great finishes and some of the great races that, they went to baseball, basketball, Marv Albert, number one in bad, but they didn't do much on racing.
Which is such a shame, too, because some of the classic calls and Secretariat calls, it has to be, right up there. Even people that don't even know racing know a little bit about, moving like a tremendous machine. They know, they know that call. It was very similar to when ESPN came out with their 30 for 30 years ago. And when they put Secretariat up as one of the top 50 athletes, you would have thought that, somebody, it was the biggest scandal that could ever be, and racing just takes a backseat. It's almost like the NHL in a way. Like you don't even hear about the NHL, even with what they're trying to do here. But even overall, when they talk about the major sports, or if you go on ESPN, their website, like it's not even listed like in the top. So you have to go way over to like touch something on the NHL. And racing isn't even involved. It's not even involved, and what a shame because they have been such fantastic calls, and I have a YouTube video of some of Tom Durkin's greatest calls that just send chills down your spine. And if you're if you just like great play-by-play, that's the kind of stuff, that off the cuff stuff that just makes it scintillating. And I guess I'm not surprised, but I'm saddened that at least one, like Secretariat's call, didn't get in there. And
you also just had a milestone because two brothers went over the top-notch numbers as far as winners are concerned and rides are concerned. And what the separation was, I guess, about 4 years between the two?
Yes. Pretty amazing. The whole, that there's just this racing just doesn't grab, and certainly the Belmont Stakes isn't going to grab anything coming up on Saturday. It's going to be a very strange and a very sad day. I mean, listen, I'm glad that they're back racing, and I mean, honestly, the fact that they don't let fans in, and I understand New York is a whole different situation, but you cannot social distance more anywhere on the planet than a Belmont Park during the week. I mean, there's 2,000 people there. They're spread out among 34 acres. You don't see anybody for 3 days. So it would have been nice if they would have maybe, at least let in some fans and had something going on, just a little something. I mean, Doug, I was joking with you. I bet you, we were never able to get that second press pass when I would want to go.
Yeah.
And I bet you this year would be probably the same thing.
I didn't even think about putting in for one, but yeah, you're right. Yeah. If they turned us down this time, then they really don't care.
No. Then they really they and they need all the they can hype it up all they want.
Now, how are they selling it to the fan? Obviously, you can bet online. You get an online account. You don't have to do OTB, right? Or is there no OTB anymore? I don't even know.
There is. I mean, there's a Nassau OTB. And I think there's some in Suffolk. So there's a couple out there that you can go to. But it's mostly, NYRA has done. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but they've actually done a brilliant job with this NYRA Rewards. I mean, they basically make you take this account and you have to play online, or else you're not going to be able to play any of the races and get any of the benefits. So they've really done. The fact that there is no New York City OTB, there's no betting in New York City, and they're not losing any money because now they're getting all that money that they weren't getting, and they forced people. They gave the $200 to each person. They gave every single promotion knowing how it was going to work out for them in the end, and they've done, in that respect, they have done a really, really good job on what they're going to do. Now, I want to know what they're going to do with Saratoga. That's a whole different question.
Is that going to open? Is that officially going to open?
They are, they're almost definitely going to go up there. There was some talk of them not going up there. The town of Saratoga has basically begged them to come up. I mean, at least if they race up there, owners and trainers
get some money from the
that's the
hotel.
whole season, Pete. That's the whole season if they don't show there.
It's a whole season. I was talking to my friend about it today, and he said, I don't know why they're going up there. What's the purpose? And I said, even as a product, as a look, if those same races were run at Belmont, I wouldn't have the same interest. It's something about the Saratoga brand, and it is a brand that you would want to play those races with that kind of feed, the way the track is and everything else. But I really have a feeling that they are going to let some people in to Saratoga. I think they're going to do something. I don't know if they have a NYRA Rewards card, if they're going to do a lottery. They're going to let probably in the beginning some owners in. But, the Saratoga, the town up there is really imploding. They're really freaking out about what's going on up there.
Absolutely.
So it's a real big deal for that town and for racing in general. I mean, that's the place to go.
The other thing I wanted to mention was Serby did a terrific job. I don't know whether you saw the post yesterday, moving up to Connecticut. Maybe they don't deliver it all the way up there for
you.
They
do not. No. They are.
John Velasquez. He did a great piece. Maybe you saw it on John Velasquez. Did you see that? It was full page.
No.
He did a great job. But Q&A with what they've been doing now with all the sports and all the announcers and all the sports writers, picking out either individuals or, like in this case, John Velasquez. And, ask him a bunch of questions about, what does he think about no fans being in the stands? You just talked about that. What does he think about it being a mile and an eighth instead of, mile and a half? All types of questions. I thought they did a nice job. It really,
what did he say about that? What did he say about not having fans?
Let me see. You two guys do something. I'll look up exactly what he said.
I was going to ask you, Pete.
I mean, as a joke, I'd say that again during the week at Belmont Park, it's really like there's no fans because even when you go to the racetrack nowadays, people are are inside watching it on TV. There's very, very few people
that
are
actually go to the rail.
watching.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, to go to the rail. You just don't see. Listen, even the warm-ups, and I think they just changed that this week, last week. But even the warm-ups, when they come onto the track at Belmont, they make a left-hand turn. They go down to about the 16th pole. Back in the old days, they go to the 8th pole because there'd be fans down there, and now there's no longer. And they turn them around and they warm them up. But now they're coming out and they're going right off to the right-hand side. They're coming out with only 4 or 5 minutes of post time. They're just running them kind of to the gate. It's almost like a winter.
They run the races every
so
15 minutes in the winter, right? I mean, it's jamming through.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and they almost should do that here. I mean, I still don't understand the 1:15 post time that we have here. I mean, can we do it any later? I don't even understand.
Are they going to now? The post time for this must be earlier because it says TV's from 3 to 6. Usually, it doesn't go up to 6:30.
Yeah, and I guess the race. I mean, I would surprise me. I think they said the race is 5:42.
Yeah, they must. They had to move it earlier, right? Yeah.
Yeah, which would the is there something going on at 6 o'clock? Is there another?
Either that, or they didn't sell enough ads to go longer. I don't know, but I thought it was strange.
Maybe.
Yeah,
because normally they have like 13 races, and so they start about 11:30, and they kick, and they'd have like 2 or 3 races after the stakes, but the stakes be run 5:40. No, normally it was a 6:30 race.
6:45. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So
daylight saving, you could go late, and get a better audience as well, because usually the golf is almost over by then, whatever's going on. But anyway, they asked him about it, and what will it be like having Belmont Stakes, the first leg of the Triple Crown instead of the last. And then he went on to say that he thought the last year's was a very, very weird year, 2020. And he said this year is going to be more weird than last year. And then he talks about no fans in the stands, and he says the fans are going to be missed. What a unique, about New York and racing fans. They're very, 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 very happy with you, or they're very rude.
Yeah, and let me tell you, no matter what, I mean, the same thing with any athlete. No matter how much you might get ridiculed sometimes and attacked, but boy, with playing with nothing, I mean, horse racing is a little bit different in that way, so it's not as big a deal. But boy, these other sports doing it with no fans, that's going to be so strange.
Well, I'll tell you, I thought the golf this weekend was terrific, but again, they can play with no fans. It's not really that important because so much is going on all the time. They just switch from one player to another player to another player, and there's not really that much interaction between the fans and the golf itself. So I thought that was very, very well done, by CBS over the weekend.
Yeah, I heard a lot of good reviews on it, and the golf was good, and it was a lot of fun, and
very good.
And they did really, really well with it. And you're right. That's another sport. I mean, it's nice to hear, thinking about like Jack Nicklaus when he won the Masters without that crowd would be weird. But the fact that on TV it plays very well even without crowds. So
yeah, they talked about that. They also, the two sports they talked about were golf and soccer, because most people grow up, not necessarily when you get to that level, but 90% of the time you're playing with nobody there. If you're in high school, college, the lesser than the PGA Tour, whatever, 90% of your golf is played with nobody there.
Right. Exactly.
Like
so
Pete, when he played high school baseball, there was absolutely nobody there to watch him play.
let me tell you something about high school baseball. We had crowds. I mean, believe it or not, we had.
Did you really? I used to go watch occasionally by the Plainfield Avenue there, but it was very rare you get a crowd. Did you get crowds later on?
We got as the season got later, and we were in first and moving on, and then we went to Eisenhower Park and we
you played there, right? I'm talking Floral Park Memorial, where there was no room for crowd. There was no stands, so
yeah, you're right. But there were a lot of people came later on, some of my dad used to come, from the train at 5:30. The game would still be going on.
I'm embarrassed that I was wrong. I just thought there was no crowd. The few times I went, there was nobody there.
I'll tell you, I think right now, and I may be 100% wrong in this, but I think right now there are going to be, as there were in the old days, I think there are going to be a lot of independent teams because of the fact the minor leagues are being cut back so dramatically.
Like the old days.
Remember, every major factory had a team. They all had teams, and I think you're going to find there's going to be independent teams all around the country because there's no minor leagues. If you want to get a shot, you're going to have a chance to play in a corporate team somewhere, and maybe develop a little bit better and go to then get in the minor league system. But it's going to be different,
like a factory team, like the old days, 40s and
exactly.
50s, right?
Yeah.
It's all everything. The landscape of everything has changed now. It's very it's going to be very interesting to see how they do this. And in baseball I don't even understand. Well, I do understand because it's baseball, but what they're doing there and how this might work out for them, and
they're doing everything they can to sabotage themselves.
Everything. I mean, boy, are there two groups of people that hate each other more than the owners and players of baseball? Wow.
Yeah, but we're down to a point now, and I've said this to Doug. We've done shows before, and my feeling right now is I'd rather see the hardline owners convince everybody to stop, don't play. Yeah. 50 games is not baseball. Putting in all kinds of nitwit rules, you go extra innings, put runners on base, all this kind of thing. That's not baseball. So, and it's not going to be a season, and it's not going to be a playoff, and it's not going to be a World Series. So, I know they want the TV money and all that, but to me, call the season off. We'll see what happens next year.
I couldn't agree any more. I mean, if we're not going to play meaningful games, and we're not, a 50-game season,
nothing.
It's. I know some people say, every game will mean something, and yeah, I understand that, but it'll mean nothing, and nothing will be accomplished by this. I wish they would take a stand and just, and just call it off, which is almost the way they're leaning right now.
I hope they do it.
I hope so too. Yeah.
I hope so too, because I mean, would you run a business to lose money? I mean,
no.
I don't, and that is what they would do. No fans. I don't understand what the problem really here is. I mean, I think it's more on the players, but I think now it's switching back to the owners because of what Manfred said today, taking back, his words about there definitely be a season. I mean, he's certainly worried that the players will take him to court, which they certainly will if he
mandates that they can file a grievance. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right.
Well, there's a big story in the paper today. The St. Louis Cardinals were purchased, I think it's 1958. I don't have the paper in front of me. I think it was 58 or 57 for $150 million. Now, the franchise in this day and age is now worth $2 billion.
Yes.
So to think that they're not making money, and there's only one team in my recollection, somebody who's listening will probably call and tell me we're wrong, but in my recollection, the only team that was purchased for a price and sold for less is when CBS bought the Yankees.
Oh, right, Yankees.
And Steinbrenner came in and bought it from CBS for less money than CBS paid for it.
I think he paid $10 million for it. 73. Yeah.
Something like that.
And I think CBS had paid, like you said, maybe $15-20 million for it.
I can't remember the numbers. I can't remember the numbers, but it's the only franchise that has been sold for less in all of baseball.
Well, that's CBS for you. Well, before we get too far out of time, let's just quickly, I know people tune in when we promote that we're doing the Belmont special. Last year we had a huge audience that did the replays on YouTube, so let's just do a quick rundown, Pete. Give a couple of picks. Obviously there's a huge favorite, but give some value if you could, and then we'll talk a little hockey.
Yeah, I really, I think what the entries, the posters get drawn tomorrow. I really haven't even I cannot tell. I hate to disappoint, but I really don't have any feeling of these other. To me, it's just an allowance race.
Tis the law.
I like the favorite.
Almost a lock, then, right?
I mean, I think so. I mean, he's training great. The mile and an eighth is his distance. He is. I think he's hands above the rest of this group. Runs well off layoffs. So to me,
he's 1-1 in the paper today. In the post today, he's 1-1.
Yeah, I really can't see him losing. So even trying to pick a Budweiser long shot here to me doesn't even make any sense.
Sole Valente is the second favorite, at least in the morning odds. 9-2.
9-2. Yeah, he's 9-2. Yeah, Tapit to win is 8-1. Let's see what else got.
Pneumatic
Dr.
is 8-1.
10-1. Yeah, Max Player is 15-1.
Yeah, I think Max Player was one of the ones that I had. That he would be more of my possibility of a
hasn't
of a
run
long
in 5
shot
months though, according to the Post. So here's a huge layoff. 5 months since.
Yeah, I know. To run right into that. I mean, listen, how many horses there's been nowhere to run. So
Yep.
a lot of these horses are going to be coming off layoffs. I don't know when the last time Tiz the Law ran. It was probably I guess it was the Florida Derby, which was 3 months ago, 2 months ago, whatever
March,
it was.
right.
So everyone's coming off layoffs. Yeah.
That Jungle Runner last race was 8th, but he was at the Arkansas Derby, but he finished 8th. He's 30-1. I mean, we're all over the board here.
Yeah,
you didn't have any of that special hay that Bob Baffert apparently gave to his horses in Arkansas, right?
No. Yeah, no, none of.
Well, yeah, what's going on with that?
I
Let's
mean,
touch on that quickly before we move off horse racing. Bob Baffert, again, his name always seems to come up in controversy. Anything you can add to that, or what's going on there?
No, not really. I mean, usually it's under good. He usually is his press is good.
Mm-hmm.
This is something a little bit different. With all the testing and the things that could happen, you can't even get involved in it. There's been so many mistakes that have happened, and I remember when Belmont had some positive, and I think it ended up being that it was in the hay, but he fought it for a year or so just to keep his reputation. And then Belmont, I mean,
right.
Can you get more of a better reputation than that? So.
Well,
and
I agree with Doug. I just can't imagine Buffett being involved in anything because first of all he's the number one jockey in the world, and owner and trainer in the world. Number two, he's got more money than God. What?
Yeah, he has no reason to go do that. Now, guys like Asmussen, they certainly have run they've certainly run on that line. They've certainly used things before. They have a lot of drug positives, and
right.
For them to come down on something like this when some of these people have just run roughshod over the sport, and these super trainers claiming these horses with 3 legs, and they end up running with 5 the next time they come out. Too much.
Let's
he
move
just
on
bought
now.
a new home out there, so he'll be all right. He's got a new home to go to, so it's all right.
Let's talk a little hockey, gentlemen, as the playoffs apparently are going to be taking place. I saw today the Rangers and Islanders are going to be apparently sent out to Las Vegas for their hub city. They haven't decided on the other one yet. They want it to be Toronto, but that's still up in the air. So Rangers and Islanders will be playing in the desert, and the Rangers really wouldn't have made the playoffs, probably, if they finished the last 8 games of the regular season. May not have made it, but they're going to get a kind of a free pass here.
The thing with the Rangers, though, is that they might have been one of the better teams in hockey over that last 10-game stretch or whatever. They finally put it all together, and right. I'm really glad that they're in it now. Again, now with this kind of layoff, I mean, any momentum is lost. But I'm glad the Islanders and the Rangers are in it. But not having any home games or that's just going to be so very strange in this environment. And what is better than hockey playoffs? Now, the thing about the hockey playoffs is that because the NHL and their playoffs, there is no sport like the NHL playoffs. So I don't care where they're having it; they can have it in the Floral Park Memorial Gym and put ice on it. It is going to be it's still going to be magnificent. You have the right guys calling it. It's still going to be a lot.
Is it going to have that? I mean, you and I love hockey. Don, of course, loves hockey. But is it going to have that kind of juice, though? I mean, without the fan noise? I mean, that energy comes a lot from the crowd noise during the playoffs. Is it going to be there?
I don't see how it could. I could see only if it would be for the real steadfast fan. I mean, don't forget, we're going to have this in July.
It's like watching a practice.
I mean, it's that's they're thinking people are going to be sitting by their TV. We're in the summer.
Right.
It's not. We're going to have 3 sports going on at the same time, unless baseball, stubs their own foot. But it's not going to get that same sort of juice. But those guys. I mean, have you heard anything?
I think I will say this, Pete. I think going back to what Doug just said, they'd like to have it in Toronto because I do think if they had it in Toronto, That would juice things up. Unfortunately, I haven't heard yet how they would get the players back and forth. First of all, you're going from one country to the other. Then the quarantine for how many days are they? Yeah, 2 weeks quarantine, and so I don't know whether Canada is going to be able, as much as they'd like to do it. I don't know if they're going to be able to do it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, the obvious thing was to have two, both venues to be in Canada. I thought that was in Canada, you're going to get some buzz from there, and that to me was the place to do it. Doing it, I get the Vegas thing, but I still don't understand the travel, as you just said. I don't understand how they're going to do all that. To me, you just do it in Canada, and just play hockey. I mean,
and they may open up. They may open up in hockey a little earlier than we would do it here in the United States.
Absolutely.
The virus has not been nearly as bad there as has been down here, and so depending on where they were going to play, I would think they'd have a shot to, maybe not get full house, but certainly get 50%.
Yeah, and that's why I thought that they would be the natural, place to go. But I'm kind of surprised at that move. Is the first round 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 5?
I think 3 out of 5. Last I read.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And they're doing a seeding round for the top the top finishers of the season. Now they're going to play 3 out of 5 as a seeding round or some weird thing. So.
Oh, they are.
That's what I read today.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean they keep moving that thing around too.
They'll play games, but it's for how you finish to get the first round bye.
Is there any team that didn't make it that has a right to squawk? I mean, I know the Devils and teams like that had no shot, but is there anyone who's sort of on?
I haven't heard any of that. I know in basketball some of those teams were griping, or some griping that they have to go to finish a season, but I haven't heard it in hockey.
Right. No, I have not heard it either. I think go back to the Islanders. You and I talked about it, Doug. When you get somebody like the Islanders being 100% in favor of the way this has been laid out, to me is only a good sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so funny. The NHL, they, the players. I mean, have you heard any squawking about any? They just want to play hockey.
Yeah, they just want to get out there.
This better. There's not better people on the planet when it comes to
hockey
players.
You're right.
They just have the integrity about themselves in the game, and it's about the game first, and then you heard nothing. It's the simplest thing. They're going to figure it out, and they're going to make it work.
We'll wrap it up, Pete. Anything going on? We kind of joked about it at the beginning with the Belmont Arena, but what's the progress of that? They have been working on that, right? Even during this whole shutdown.
No. Actually,
they
didn't. I thought they were, but
I thought they were doing it. Okay.
No, they just opened it up this week. Did they? I thought Monday or Tuesday of this week, today or whatever it was, Monday or today or tomorrow. They were supposed to go back to work.
All right.
Yeah, I think they finally started that up. So I don't think it's going to delay anything. They'll catch up with that.
It's a whole other season before they go in anyway, right? I mean, they're going to play at the Coliseum next year.
Yeah, that's a valuable piece of real estate and a valuable franchise, and what they're going to do. So they're going to make that. They're going to hustle that up really, really fast.
Yeah. Well, Pete, glad we could catch up with you and enjoy Connecticut wherever you are up there.
Yeah, I'm just hanging by a lake here.
Are you by the submarine there in Mystic? Anywhere near there?
No, I'm nowhere near. Nowhere near Mystic. I'm in an undisclosed location.
The Hartford Whalers are no longer there, No.
Your house is right next door to Mad Dog, isn't it?
That's right.
It is. I'm a little shy of Mad Dog's money, but I'm nearby.
Aren't we all? Yeah. Man hit the lotto. Good for him.
Sure did, man.
Pete, we'll do something before the Derby, which again is Labor Day weekend, right? That's the Saturday of Labor Day, I believe, that they're running that.
Is it that Saturday?
September 5th, right?
Right.
Isn't that Labor Day weekend? I'll look right now.
Yeah. Yes.
So
yes, it is.
Let's do it. And is the Derby going to allow fans? Oh boy.
Lots going to happen in the next 3 months. I'm sure a lot of changes, or maybe not. Who knows? But we all go day to day.
Let's have another discussion.
Okay, Pete. Thank you as always for being with us. It's a lot of fun, and whether we talk about hockey or baseball or basketball or racing, no matter what it is, we always touch on enough things to make it interesting.
It's always a fast-moving, fun conversation. Love talking to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Don. And we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for joining us.
Take care.